Okay folks, buckle up. This one's wild. We're heading back to 1980 Texas, where the sky didn't just light up, it burned. 3 people, 1 mysterious craft, and a cover-up that's still echoing through UFO history. It's December the 29th, 1980, a cold Texas night. 3 people, Betty Cash, Vickie Landrum and 7-year-old Colby, are driving home on a quiet country road when the sky tears open. A blinding diamond of fire hovers above the tree line, the air rippling with heat. The road's too narrow to turn back, the light too bright to escape. When it lifts away, the night fills with helicopters, dozens of them, chasing something. And on that lonely stretch of asphalt, 3 ordinary lives are changed forever. The encounter. The night began quietly enough, just a drive home from dinner near Dayton, Texas. The Landrums were a church-going family. Betty was a business owner. No one looking for UFOs. They were just trying to get home. But then came the light. So bright, it turned the pine forest into daylight. At first, they thought it was a helicopter crash. Something burning in the sky, descending fast. The air shimmered with heat waves as a huge diamond-shaped object lowered over the road ahead. Its surface glowed white-hot, like molten metal. And from beneath it, tongues of flame roared down, scorching the asphalt. And Vickie screamed for Betty to stop the car, terrified they were about to drive straight into hell itself. The heat was unbearable, so intense that Colby began crying, his face pressed against the car seat. The women could feel their skin prickling, the air thick with static, and then the smell. Metallic, chemical, almost electric. And Betty stepped out of the car, shielding her face against the glare. She watched the object hovering, silent at first, then rising, the flames pulsing rhythmically, like it was breathing. As it lifted, it drifted across the road, leaving behind patches of blackened tarmac. And just when they thought it was over, they heard it, the deep thumping of rotor blades. 1 helicopter, then another, then a swarm. Chinook-style twin rotors, circling, dozens of them, chasing the glowing craft into the distance. The night sky roared with machinery. When it was gone, the road fell silent again. Just the smell of burnt tar and the sound of Colby sobbing softly. Betty's skin was blistering, her eyes burning. They didn't know it yet, but that light in the Texas sky would haunt them for the rest of their lives. A mystery that scorched not just the road, but everything they believed about the world around them. The military connection. In the days after the encounter, Betty and Vickie were desperate for answers. Whatever they'd seen that night had left them shaken and literally burned. But one detail kept haunting them, the helicopters. They weren't imagining them. At least 20, maybe more, dual-rotor Chinooks swarmed the sky, chasing that diamond-shaped craft like bees after a wounded queen. The noise was deafening, the formation tight, military style. You don't just get 24 helicopters flying around rural Texas without someone noticing. And yet, every military base they contacted, Ellington, Fort Hood, even NASA in nearby Houston, all said the same thing: not ours. So, where did they come from? That question turned the Cash-Landrum case from a UFO mystery into something more complicated, something political. Because the more the women pushed for answers, the more doors slammed shut. When they tried to file reports, no one wanted to touch it. But when they did get attention, it wasn't from UFO enthusiasts, it was from the lawyers. In 1981, with their health deteriorating, Betty and Vickie sued the US government for $20 million, claiming they'd been injured by exposure to a secret military craft. The government's response? Essentially, never heard of it. The case was dismissed. The Air Force denied any involvement. Still, the witnesses stuck to their story, helicopters and all. Some investigators believe the object might have been an experimental aircraft, possibly nuclear-powered, escaping a test gone wrong. But there was one problem with that theory. Nobody brings a malfunctioning nuclear vehicle out over civilians, unless it wasn't supposed to be there. And that's where this case really starts to feel like a scene from the X-Files, because whatever the US military was chasing that night, they sure didn't want anyone talking about it. The aftermath and radiation mystery. And within hours of the encounter, Betty's health began to collapse. Her skin turned red and blistered. Clumps of hair fell out. Her eyes swelled shut. Vickie and young Colby weren't as bad, but they had nausea, headaches, and burns on their faces. Doctors were puzzled. The symptoms looked like radiation poisoning, but the timeline didn't fit. Radiation sickness doesn't appear within minutes, and there was no known source strong enough to cause it out on that Texas back road. No broken power lines, no leaking equipment, just scorched pavement, burnt pine trees, and a mystery. At first, doctors didn't believe her. One even suggested she'd been sunburned in December, but then the photographs surfaced. Betty's skin covered in lesions, her hair thin to wisps. Something had happened out there, something that left a physical mark. Investigators from civilian UFO groups examined the site and confirmed there were signs of intense heat. The asphalt had softened and rehardened unevenly, almost as if a massive blowtorch had hovered above it. Trees nearby showed damage consistent with flash burns. So, the obvious question, what could cause that kind of radiation and heat without leaving behind a crater or wreckage? The leading theory among skeptics is that Betty and Vickie stumbled upon a classified military retrieval operation, perhaps a downed experimental craft powered by nuclear engines. Maybe those helicopters were the cleanup crew. If that's true, it explains the burns, the secrecy, and the silence. But there's a problem. If it was a government experiment, someone would have to have noticed all that radiation, and no official test logs, no flight plans, no paperwork, nothing ever turned up. It's as if the incident happened outside the record books. And for Betty Cash and Vickie Landrum, the physical scars were the only evidence that remained. The theories. Now, every good mystery eventually hits the stage where everyone becomes an expert, and the Cash-Landrum case? Oh, it's got theories, piles of them. The first, and maybe the most obvious, is the UFO angle. A craft not of this world, diamond-shaped, radiating enough energy to leave radiation burns, being chased by a fleet of military helicopters. If you're keeping score, that's basically every UFO researcher's dream scenario. Aliens show up, humans panic, the military swoops in to contain it. Simple. Except, it's never that simple. If this was extraterrestrial, why were the helicopters there within seconds? It's like they were expecting it. Either someone was tracking this thing, or maybe it was there to begin with. Which leads us to theory number 2, the experimental craft. Some believe Betty, Vickie, and Colby stumbled upon a secret test flight, possibly something nuclear-powered. The late 1970s and early 80s were full of hush-hush propulsion projects, early stealth programs, atomic-powered rockets, even prototypes that made today's drones look like toys. Maybe this one got out of control, and the military scrambled to bring it back. Makes sense, right? Except for the part where the government says it never happened. And then there's the skeptic's theory, the misidentification angle. Maybe it was a re-entry test, or flares, or an oil rig fire seen from the wrong perspective. But that doesn't explain the radiation burns, or why multiple witnesses saw those helicopters. Every explanation seems to solve one mystery while creating 3 more. That's what keeps this case alive. It resists resolution. It's like the universe's way of saying you're not supposed to know. And if that's true, well, we're about to find out how deep that silence goes. The silence and the cover-up. In the years that followed, Betty and Vickie pushed for answers. They contacted everyone, senators, military officials, even NASA. But the response was always the same, polite interest followed by a polite no comment. Eventually, they took their case to court, suing the US government for $20 million in damages. They weren't asking for UFO disclosure, they just wanted help with their medical bills. Burns, cataracts, immune damage. Their lives had been upended, but the Air Force stood firm. No evidence, no responsibility. The judge dismissed the case. And that's where the silence got loud, because even if this wasn't a UFO, something happened out there. You don't get radiation poisoning from wishful thinking. You don't hallucinate 23 military helicopters. Investigators dug deeper. No flight logs, no training missions, no exercises listed for that night. The entire region's military footprint just vanishes on paper, like someone hit delete on December the 29th, 1980. This isn't unique though. The US government has a long history of classified testing in populated areas, from radiation exposure experiments in the 1950s to chemical dispersal tests over American cities. When things went wrong, the easiest move was denial. After all, it's hard to apologize for something that never officially happened. As for Betty and Vickie, their health never fully recovered. Betty's injuries worsened over time, while Vickie clung to her faith, convinced that what they'd witnessed wasn't evil, just beyond human understanding. And through it all, their story never changed, not once. That's rare in UFO lore. Usually details blur with time, but these two stood by every word, every flash of light, every sound of those helicopters fading into the Texas night. Sometimes the real mystery isn't the event itself, it's the silence that follows. The burned sky. More than 40 years later, the night over Dayton, Texas still feels heavy with that unanswered question, what really happened out there? The road where Betty, Vickie and Colby stopped is quiet now. The trees have grown back. The asphalt's been resurfaced, but the scars, the ones left on the people who were there, never really faded. Betty passed away in 1998, still insisting on every detail. Vickie too, before her death, never once wavered. And Colby? He's grown up now, still remembering the fire in the sky that terrified him as a child. No official report ever confirmed anything. The US government maintains there were no helicopters in the area that night. No experimental craft, no accident, nothing. Which is strange, because if this really were a hoax, it would have been the most medically inconvenient one in history. You can't fake second-degree burns, radiation lesions, and blinding light seen by multiple witnesses. So, we're left with two uncomfortable possibilities. Either it was something alien, a craft not of this world, damaged, hunted, maybe even dying in our skies, or it was human, a secret so big and dangerous it had to be buried under decades of denial. And between those two explanations, it's hard to say which one is more unsettling. Because if it was extraterrestrial, then we're not alone, and they're not as careful as we'd like to think. But if it was ours, it means our technology, even back in 1980, was powerful enough to injure civilians with radiation and vanish without a trace. The Cash-Landrum incident isn't just a UFO story, it's a reminder of how fragile truth becomes when secrecy takes flight. Maybe the truth really is out there, or maybe on some quiet Texas night, it's still up there, burning just out of reach. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed our shorter, stripped-down Monday evening video. And we're back as normal on Friday evening with our full-fat episode. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Those things really help the channel out, and I'd really appreciate it. And let me know in the comments below of videos you would like to see next time. Okay, my friends, stay safe, and until next time, stay curious.